you do seem at times to be warm towards President Trump, and he is clearly warm towards you. And
I would definitely disagree with that. He just called me a radical effing liberal.
But he also said you're a common sense guy, and you guys in public have exchanged warm words. I think that's fair. And you said you're proud that he likes you.
I've said good things about President Biden.
And Biden's fine.
He's been my friend.
But here's where I'm going with the Trump thing. You endorsed his opponent in 2016, correct?
Hillary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. What since 2016, in his first term, and then him refusing to leave office peacefully, and January 6th, and everything since then has made you warmer towards him? I mean, you went from supporting Hillary Clinton against him in 2016 to now, however you want to describe it, the way you talk about him now. Can you explain that for us?
Well, I can explain to you that I'm running against him, so obviously I don't want him to be president of the United States, and I don't think he did a good job. And if you go look at my speeches, my statements, I am not mean-spirited. And I think President Trump's and President Biden's administrations have been catastrophic for this country. They've run up a $34 trillion debt.
Would you say roughly equally catastrophic?
I would say they're both been catastrophic.
But similar?
In their own way.
But similar?
In their own way.
Because here's why people...
Well, you're trying to get me to quantify it so that you can win a debating point, and I'm not going to do that.
It's not a debating point. Hold on. It's not a debating point. There's a big choice coming down, and you are now inserting yourself, as you have the legal right to do, as a candidate for office.
Exactly.
But you're someone who, again, in all fairness, was giving these speeches against Nader for this kind of thing, was supporting Clinton against Trump, saying this is the danger of Trump. And now people hear you, and this is a chance to talk about it, but people hear you as very similarly to Nader saying it's a pox on both houses, lesser of two evils, what others call false equivalency. I want to play for you some of what Donald Trump... Wait, and then I'll let you respond, but I made this for you. This is some of what Donald Trump stands for and why people hear you, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., talk about false equivalence.
This is all debating tricks. You're lighting.
There's not a trick at all.
You're lighting fires faster than I can put them out. Every single thing you say, I can answer.
It's not
Give me a
okay.
chance to
So
answer.
take a listen to this, and you'll get the floor.
Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously. I will pay for the legal fees, I promise. Very fine people on both sides.
These aren't people. These are animals.
Proud boys, stand back and stand by
the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
I said I want to be a dictator for one day. It's nice to have a strong man running your country.
People are concerned not that this is Nader 2.0, but that you are using the platform and the following you have to suggest that they're both catastrophic and they're similar, and that you, they say, are ignoring not only the policy difference, but the actual possible democracy and autocratic threat of Donald Trump if he wins again. Perhaps thanks to you, your response.
Yeah, I never said that. So, like I said, I think both of them did bad things to our country. I think both of them contributed. President Trump, more than any president in history, built $8 trillion after coming in and promising the country that he was going to run the government like a business. He shut down every business, 3.3 million businesses with no due process, no just compensation. That's a violation of the Constitution. He ran up an $8 trillion debt. More money he spent than every president between George Washington and George W. Bush, 283 years. President Biden is racing to catch up with him. He's added $1 trillion in the last 100 days. They're both catastrophic. Neither of them can solve that problem. Let me tell you something else they can't do. Neither of them can end the vitriol that you are trying to pump up right now. I understand.
What have I said that's vitriolic?
What
have I said that's vitriolic?
You're saying to me that I need to take it aside and say one person.
No, I'm asking you about, you're running for president, it's a big job, and I'm asking you about what people say out there.
You told me I would have the floor. You told me.
Yes, I did.
After you get
but you
your
just
long
you
speech.
just suggested that I am perpetrating vitriol, and I asked you to substantiate that. What have I said today that is vitriolic?
Let me finish what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I said when I announced a year ago is that we are facing a time in our history, Harry, that is more, and I think you'll agree with this, you are a student of history, that is more vitriolic, more polarized, more poisonous and at any time since the American Civil War. And it's all being amplified by the social media algorithms. And it's hard to see a way out of that if somebody doesn't come along and say, I'm not going to participate in that. And even if people act crazy on both sides, I'm not going to be part of that craziness.
But you're not addressing the question I raised, and maybe you won't, which is that what we just heard from former President Trump and what he does in the racism, in the misogyny, refusing to leave peacefully through January 6th, up through that night, praising the people who are now convicted seditionists. What I played for you, people don't all see what you seem to be saying, which is a type of equivalence. Do you see something different about that and the threat of that this election or not? And if not, so be it. But that's what people are asking.
This is when I say you're feeding into the vitriol. You're trying to get me to hate on President Trump.
Not hate on. I'm talking about what happened. They stormed the Capitol. They tried to overthrow the certification and the results of a lawful election. And Donald Trump is out here now saying he has, according to his lawyers, license to kill, license to coup, will pardon all those people. And so you seem to be saying, discussing that as vitriolic. No, it's not. Having a clear position on the peaceful transfer of power is a very low bar. Very low bar. And the reason why people are asking this is not just because they're trying to distract from your issues, although you're getting time to discuss them. But again, you're well familiar with your campaign put out a statement and an email that said basically the people at January 6th who stormed the Capitol were stripped of their constitutional liberties. They were, quote, activists. You retracted it, but then you hired a Republican operative who's lied about January 6th, called it democratic misdirection. We are talking about whether there are rules and nonviolence enforced in our country or not. And that was a violent storming of the Capitol. Can you unequivocally condemn that, or do you leave us all out here because of whatever your reasons, whether you think that's part of the voting bloc or something else?
Look, January 6th was a terrible time in our history, a terrible day. People committed terrible crimes. They committed violence against police officers. They broke into the Capitol. They stormed the Capitol. They committed other crimes, and a lot of people are in jail, and they should be. So I condemn that, but I'm not going to campaign based upon drumming up or amplifying people's hatred towards each other. I think we need to start figuring out a way to find common ground.
Sure, but you condemn that, and Donald Trump would be, he would be wrong to then pardon it. If you condemn it, he'd be wrong to pardon it, right?
Sure, but what you do and what you do when you're sitting in this chair every night is your job is to inflame that. And my job is to de-escalate.
I don't feel inflamed at all.
You don't feel, I know, but that's what you're doing. I don't disagree with the things you're saying. I'm just not going to participate in it. That's all. I'm not disagreeing with you.
But there is a theme here of what many people see as a false equivalence. And we could go through all that.
But I didn't say that there's a moral equivalence. All I said is both of them did things that were wrong for our country.
Okay, so to go back to the question.
And both of them attacked the Constitution.
But to button up the question, because you condemn January 6th, then Donald Trump, who you're running against, you would disagree with his talk of pardoning the convicted seditionists and people who trespassed and stormed the Capitol.
Listen, I would, in terms of pardoning people, I'm going to use the pardon power. I don't know who I'm going to use. I'm an attorney. I'm going to look at every case that's brought before me and make a decision on it. I'm not going to.
But as a general, I'm not trying.
You're trying to say in advance who I'm going to pardon, whom I'm not going to pardon. I'm not issuing a general pardon to any category of people.
So when you look at his talk, which is doing that, he talks about taking the convicts from January 6th.
You're trying to get me to condemn him again, and on these
I'm asking you about your views. You're running for president. It's a big job, and I'm asking you: would you be open to those kind of pardons or not?
Here's my views. We have the worst inflationary generation. We're embroiled in a war that we should have never got involved with in Ukraine. Just President Trump said he was going to end that war.
Right, but the question is about those pardons. Would you be open to that or not?
What do you mean? I'm not. Listen, I'm an attorney.
Yeah.
I was a prosecutor. You were, I think, a legal aid attorney. I was a prosecutor. I would never say in advance of running for political office who I'm going to pardon and who
but that's what he's doing, and you're running against him. And I'm asking you as a journalist where you stand on
their
that.
Case. I'm not going to do that.
So that will sound to people like you're leaving that door open. You don't need to. Do you want to leave that door open? I'm surprised
I'm not going to leave
your
it
answer.
open or closed. I'm not answering it until I look at people's cases.